Hello and welcome back to the Self-Wealth Real Estate Podcast. Today I'm interviewing the one and only Erwin Szeto. Erwin is a very well-known real estate investor, formerly known as Mr. Hamilton. Works as a realtor with a team and has been investing in Hamilton in the area for quite a long time, as well as helping a large number of real estate investors build and grow their portfolio. He is now starting to invest in the States, and he explains his reasons for it, where he's investing, his methodology, what types of properties and areas he's looking for. I think that's a really interesting conversation for anyone who's considering that. And we talk a little bit why the decision to move away from Canada for him. So I think overall, this is a really interesting conversation we have, and I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the podcast, Erwin.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Erwin, tell our listeners, how did you get started in real estate? What did you do before real estate?
Well, I always wanted to be rich. It was always in my DNA. It's always when I was in my high school days, trying to choose a path for a career. Younger, I wanted to be in medicine because my dad's a doctor and doctors make good money. But I was terrible at biology and needles make me sick to my stomach. So I went to business school, and then graduating business school, my final year was during 9/11. So jobs were crap coming out. So anyone who's feeling the recession right now, I feel sorry for you. But, I honestly have been through worse. 9/11 was a horrific event. And so my first few jobs weren't that great. And again, my goal was still to get rich. And, really important person into my life gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad. And oh, okay, so the job thing isn't going to get me rich, so just learn to invest, and then bought a property, and then went through another financial crisis, went through the financial crisis. We had a portfolio of about 5 or 6 properties at the time. Thought the world would fall apart, thought we'd lose everything, and anyone who's looked back, real estate did incredibly well. And, because there's no credit, there's a credit crisis, no one could get a mortgage, but you know what, life went on. So no one could buy, so everyone had to rent. So my rents went up, my vacancies went down. And then wow, this real estate thing works great. So I thought I'd just invest a whole lot more time and money into it.
Nice. That's I want to comment. I like you thought you always wanted to be rich, because I don't think I've talked about this before, but I always had, and I don't know where this came from, because my mindset was always that I was rich. I just didn't have money yet. It was I felt like I was rich. I was just broke. I didn't have the money. But I always felt like I was rich. Felt like I would have money, and it wasn't when. It wasn't if I would have be wealthy or rich. It was when. And I feel like that influenced my decisions, because I wasn't coming from a place of fear of not having money. It was more no, I need to be careful with my money because I'm going to be rich, and so I need to save up to get to the point where I'm rich. I need to be myself, so I need to get the money, obviously, because I'm someone who's rich. I always viewed myself that way. And it's kind of weird to explain, because I don't know where the mindset even came from. It was just how I felt. Mm-hmm. I was a rich person who didn't have money.
I can't share that feeling, because I was driving a used Honda Accord, living at home. My girlfriend made more money than me. I did not feel rich.
I didn't. Yeah. I mean, I was similar. I drove a 98 Safari for 7 years, from 2007 to 2014. I worked construction labor jobs, I scrimped and scrounged and all of that, but it was because I was broke. I wasn't poor. I was just broke. I never felt poor. I just felt broke. So I don't know how that helps our listeners, but I think the mentality can shift your decision-making. If you can convince yourself of something, it will help you get there, is how I feel. So, yeah. But I like that mindset. You wanted to be rich, and you found a way to do it, and that works. So you wanted to get more into real estate, and how'd that transition?
It's actually interesting, because you asked where I was before. I was working for a company that was acquired by IBM. I was working downtown. I was living in Burlington. My portfolio was mainly in Burlington and Hamilton. And then just there was the moment where we can no longer work with the broker, the real estate broker that we were working with. We just started growing them. I study a lot, because I really want to be rich, so I study hard. Way harder than I ever did in school. and realized that, yeah, we'd outgrown our broker. And so I decided to get licensed myself just to trade the family account. And then I was belonging to Real Estate Investment Network back then. My friends knew I had a license, and they knew that my portfolio was doing well. And so friends would just walk up to me, but people I met at the Real Estate Investment Network would come up to me and say, "I'd like to have what you have. And can you help me?" Like, "Oh, that's easy. I know exactly what I would buy. So I can tell you exactly what I buy and help you do it." And so then I went on sabbatical for a month to be an agent full-time for a month. And it meant I did quite well. In that month, I completely eclipsed my salary for compared to the same month. So then, just modeled it out, and like, I can make more money doing what I enjoy. And also as a side benefit, I'll become a better real estate investor, which I have. So it just made sense. And I don't have to commute downtown anymore either.
Absolutely. So what year did you get your real estate license?
2010. Yeah.
2010. Okay.
I've been working with clients since 2010.
Yeah, 14 years. Pretty good.
And also, I just want people to understand, like, this was a business decision. I went to business school, so I did a full business case analysis on this as well. Like, I am an investor. Where can I provide people the most value as an investor? Because at the time, there was no investor specialist realtors out there. There were realtors who said they would do what like people like my broker did. They would work with investors. Generally, they didn't like working with investors. Versus, I wanted to work with investors. I didn't want there to be like emotional decisions in real estate, because I don't make decisions that way either. I make decisions based on like, return on value, cap rates, internal rate of return. Again, I went to business school, so everything I always studied investments, how money's made, how money's lost, right? So that's why I was in real estate as well. It was extremely low risk.
And for a while there, you were pushing people to invest in Hamilton, which did very well over the years, grew very well, market very well.
You've been tracking the market.
And it had been a rougher area. Like early 2000s, it was rough. There was a lot of inexpensive rundown homes.
Yeah.
And really it was a push out from Toronto probably that helped boost it. And then Hamilton's now got, large city, got its own economy. So it's done very well over the years. And I think, you were someone who was pushing investors there who made a lot of money from that. And you were, for a while there, you were known as Mr. Hamilton.
Yes. Some people still refer to me as that.
How did that start?
Is again business decision, largely like how I'm going to brand myself. Again, from back in school, it was like, if you choose a business name, from your business name, people should understand exactly what you do, right? So if I comment, and I was inspired by Mr. Reuter, the plumbing company, like that's extremely explicit. Okay, how about Mr. Hamilton? Pretty easy. Pretty easy. Register MrHamilton.ca, throw on the Hamilton Tiger Cat jersey, put Mr. Hamilton on the back, very recognizable brand. And yeah, just go to all the meetups, went everywhere with it on. And then from then on, I was Mr. Hamilton. I was like, just based like, so as an event, and it was a bus tour. There were several buses. Someone bailed. Say, "Hey, you!" It was a tour of Hamilton. He pointed at me like, "Can you come help? We need someone to help on the tour," based on how I was dressed. Like, yeah, I'll help. And then, just from there, then more speaking events, just my business snowballed. Again, I was the only person in my space, right? Basically, business
specializing in that,
specialized. My brand was working. Like a great brand is top 2 in its category, right? I was top 2 in my category. So then, business was great. And also people were making money. So then,
who are you going to go to buy a rental property in Hamilton? Someone who works in a lot of places, including Hamilton, or Mr. Hamilton?
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. I think our minds work similar in that way, because I'm very much, I like that kind of explicit, clearly spelled out what you do. Like you look at my company names, like I'm Cash House Buyer, like my website, cashhousebuyer.ca, Ottawa Housebuyer.ca. Ottawa Housebuyer.ca. What do you do? I buy houses in Ottawa. Oh, okay. It's not confusing to anyone, right?
Exactly. It's easy to remember. And like when you tell people what the name of your business is, they know what to talk to you about.
Absolutely.
So it's not about Sudbury, Timmins.
Yes.
I don't know if you advertise there too, but
maybe. But we had to have local, in several of our markets, we have kind of local brands, because that also helps in the local market. Like, that's the one I'm going to reach out to, right? Versus just some generic company, right?
Because everyone wants to work with someone local.
Yeah, it gives you...
When you say local, it means a lot, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So no, I like that a lot. And now you're saying, well, you don't really use that brand anymore. And why is that? What changed?
What changed? What hasn't changed? The only thing consistent in life has changed. When I started, prices were like, I was buying houses for like 150, 145, 199, and renting them out for like 1,300, 1,500. So those days are gone, and then all these other things as well. Like my career as well is like we started single family, did some small multi conversions. Not all of them had permits, and then the city started cracking down on them. So now, okay, I need what can I do now? So we did like about 100 student rentals, right? And then when basement apartments were legalized back in 2015 for my market, we just went nuts with basement apartments from 2015 on. And now we're talking about, like I mentioned, we were buying for like 150. Now a duplex legal is like 760, right? Yeah, and the rents have not kept up, so it's not nearly as affordable. We can't cash flow, along with rent control, all these other challenges that we have as being Ontario investors. Residential Tenancy Act is not in our favor. Landlord Tenant Board, I heard it's improving, but it's still, even before the pandemic, it's still 3-4 months for a Landlord Tenant Board hearing, which is still, in my opinion, when you compare it to what's available in like landlord-friendly states in the USA, it's 30-60 days to get rid of a non-paying tenant, versus here, at best, it was 3 to 4 months to get a hearing to at least argue about it.
And it's worse. It's much worse. Now it's actually like ridiculously unacceptable how it is right now, and how it has been for a few years now. It's saying that they have been able to catch up. It's a major problem that I know investors talk about it, but it just gets ignored by it's wild. Anyways, so how did your portfolio kind of evolve? You said you had properties before the 2008 recession, and then you've owned properties since then. Obviously, how's your portfolio evolved over the time and till today? What's it been like?
Again, as someone who's naturally analytical, like I naturally gravitate towards highest and best use. I've been doing burrs before anyone were calling them. Like again, back when properties were like 145,000, we buy them cash.
Yeah.
Spend 10, 15, 25 in renos, and then get a tenant, and then we present the deal to the bank and go get a Schedule A bank and then get like a cheap mortgage. And back then, it was 25% down. That was the minimum. And then just doing it over and over again. And then back those days, like properties were going up so much in value. About 3 years, you could refinance it and go buy another one. And rates were so low, you could actually make these numbers work.
Yeah,
but we're well past that now.
Yeah, it's a little different now.
A little different, like I'm sure people you've mentioned on the show, like renovations are so much more expensive now.
Yeah,
like I literally had a client spend $300,000 on a modular garden suite, right? So it was built off site, it was craned into the backyard, $300,000 delivered for a garden suite, right? And in Hamilton Mountain, and the rent will be fine. Yeah, it'll be great. Doesn't come with any land, and there's no rent control right now. But my guess will be as soon as Doug Ford loses, which he will lose eventually, no one lasts forever, that we will lose the rent control exemption on that property.
Yes. And you know what? I had a thought about this the other day. I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but I feel like Doug Ford's rent control, unfortunately, isn't actually helping in terms of producing more housing, because there was, for those who are newer investors, there was rent control really until 2017. Kathleen Wynne got rid of it in her, was it a 16-point housing plan in the spring of 2017.
Yeah, and the market melted down.
And the market melted down after that. Yeah. But what it was there had been rent, basically, if it was built after the early 90s, it was not subject to rent control. And that was the whole time, from early 90s to 2017, 25 years of no rent control on those builds. And then Kathleen Wynne got rid of it. And then Doug Ford put it back in place in, was it November of 2018, something like that. Mm-hmm. The problem is he didn't make it retroactive back to the 90s. So when you, as a developer, investor, are adding units, you're not doing it saying, oh, this new unit's not going to be subject to rent control for 25 years or more. You're going, oh, I might have no rent control for a few years until the government changes. But then even if the Conservatives come back, put it back in place, it'll probably be from a new date. And therefore, it doesn't help me build now. It doesn't incentivize me to build now. It actually defeats the purpose of what they were trying to do. So I think it's going to be a constant back and forth. And as much as I think it should exist, the way he re-implemented it isn't actually going to help the housing stock. So it's kind of defeats the purpose, unfortunately. He should have been like, nope, back to the early 90s, back to the previous rules. If you weren't subject to rent control for the past, 25 years, you're not now. And he didn't do that. So that's unfortunate.
A progressive conservative government.
Yeah, I mean,
it's supposed to be as good as it gets for us capitalists.
He tries.
For us business owners.
I am shocked that he's not fixing the landlord-tenant board. It's an embarrassment. But I mean, neither other party's going to do better. So it's what we got right now for investors. Personal political opinions otherwise, but from an investor focus, right now they're the best we got.
And I follow the trend. The trend is not in the landlord's favor in Ontario or BC.
And that's also, I a little bit can view that sometimes as a pro. Because there's no way rents go down over time. They're making it so hard to be a landlord. Over time, rents are going to be ridiculous, and they're going to continue to be ridiculous because they make it so hard to be a landlord, there's not going to be enough housing. That's about it. And they're going to keep punishing landlords, but if you can manage to work within the rules, there'll just be less competition, which can be a benefit. But, pros and cons. You have to ask yourself, would I rather be in an area with less competition, but it's really hard to do? Or would I rather be in an area with maybe a little more competition, but it's way easier?
It's a tough call because Hamilton's a special case.
Yeah,
because we have now our rent eviction bylaw, where what if you have a legitimate issue with the property? Say the roof leaks, several units are soaked. You're going to have mold growth.
Yeah,
right. So the tenant has to leave so you can remediate the issue.
Yeah,
but now with this new renovation bylaw, the landlord will have to find the tenant an equal property, roughly at the same price, and if not, you got to cover the hotel, right? But that's what tenant insurance is for. But anyways, there's legitimate reasons for proper rent eviction, but now these new bylaws are just completely handcuffed all these landlords, and then on top of that, we have a rental licensing pilot. Right. So, and that's just going to add more cost to operating a rental business.
Absolutely.
So it's not only less competitive, whatever, but it's more expensive. It's more expensive to operate.
Not to turn this all into a rant, but I often think about second-tier consequences, which is actually that kind of thinking about what the next steps are, what could happen as a result of this, is part of how I grew my business so quickly successfully, was because I would be able to look at, okay, we do this, and the next thing that's going to happen is this and this, and then we can pre-plan for those other things, start hiring for the right roles, start planning out the right things. And what I found in particular, and this is, again, not an attack, on personal beliefs, but what I've seen, unfortunately, is, particularly from the NDP, is they are really bad at forecasting second-tier consequences. When they were running for, provincially, they're talking about getting rid of, was it tenancy? What do they call it? Decontrol? Something like where rents between tenants are still, you can't change the rent between tenants by more than
another level of rent control.
Yes, another level of rent control, but basically,
not raise rents between tenants.
You can no longer raise rents between tenants was something they were proposing. And there's no way that's a good idea. Yes, it helps a little bit keep rents down, but it will destroy the housing stock. There's no incentive to renovate units. There's no incentive to make them nicer. You Band-Aid solution everything forever. There's really no incentive, because when market rents are, $5,000 on a unit and you're renting it for $2,000, because it's been like that for a long time, there's no reason for you to improve that unit when the next tenant's going to come and be like, look, you're getting this for 40% of market rate. Take it as is. Fix it yourself. I don't care. And that would be the future if they do stuff like that. I don't see how that's a viable solution at all, because they're not.
big government and bigger spending, because that's the only way. That's how they back it. That's how they think it's going to work.
Yeah.
I think that nonprofits will step up, more government funding for nonprofits.
I think the government has ways to actually build significantly more housing. I actually think there's ways to build modular mid-rise and high-rise buildings using overseas construction labor to build them overseas and then assemble them in Canada. And all the government would need to do is allow it and send Canadian inspectors to go overseas and inspect them as they're being built. And now we don't have a labor shortage because we can use another country's labor.
I don't see the NDP flying that fly.
Oh, no, I don't see them actually trying. That's just one of many ways they could incentivize this kind of stuff. But I will get off my soapbox here. Let's continue. So so your portfolio's changed over time. You've kind of...
It's changing again.
Yes, and it's changing again. And you've taken advantage of opportunities as you see them. You sell what makes sense. You keep what makes sense. You moved from single-family burrs to student housing when it made sense, and then in duplexes, and now, clients with garden suites and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are you up to?
Currently selling. So my what I always tell clients was, like, the game of Monopoly is won by owning property strategically, right? Mm-hmm. You have a color, that's worth a lot of money strategically. That should be what you're after. Point is, I say to my clients, don't sell unless you have a reason to sell. Unless you need the money, or you have a better opportunity. I believe I found a better opportunity. And also, just to close off the NDP thing, the former leader of the NDP is the mayor of Hamilton, Andrew Horwath. So can you not see why we need to get the what out?
And I've seen her speak. She's very intelligent. And I will say, like, for anyone who
they're all smart.
For anyone who hates the different political parties, the way I see it is basically all politicians are actually trying to help. They can just be wrong, but they're trying to do the right thing. Like,
they're trying to help. It doesn't mean to be a douchebag. He's trying to help.
They are
like Justin Trudeau, like Doug Ford, right? Doug Ford is like the most left-leaning political conservative leader we've ever seen in our lives. If we were put him in front of Americans, they would laugh.
Yeah.
He is left of the Democrats, man.
Yes. True. Yeah. So, I mean, my thing is, like, I think their intentions are always good. They're just wrong, in my opinion. And unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe you should run for...
No, it is a thankless job. But who knows me knows I have thin skin. I could never do... you could be the greatest leader in the world, and almost half the population hates you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, first, take... And this isn't political, but Obama had a pretty good approval rating.
Yeah.
But the 40% who don't like him, they all have guns, too. So I should never put myself in that.
I mean, and it's gotten worse, the political divide. That's why, like, I'm not particularly political. I have my beliefs, and I think, like, when I'm talking about it, I'm talking from an investor side, and, what I think best for investors. And also, again, like, I personally can't see myself ever voting NDP, because I think their heart's in the right place and they'd make their own decisions. Kind of like communism. Not that I'm not comparing NDP to communism. I'm just saying communism, their hearts are in the right place. They're trying to create a utopia, and instead, lots of people die.
If anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, like, go study Marxism in Russia.
Yeah. Mao Zedong was great. That sarcasm. Anyways, for anyone who wasn't sure about that. So, for those who can't see the video, you're wearing a hat that says USA.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, then my point that I was making earlier is I found a better use for my money. Also, at this stage in my career, I'm done dealing with shit. This is the saying as well. Whoever deals with the most shit wins. Right. Mm-hmm. I've won a lot, but because I've been dealing with shit by being an Ontario long-term landlord. I've dealt with a lot of shit, and I won for it.
Yeah.
Now avenues have opened up for me to own in the States that will make my investing a lot more passive, while doing other things for me that I kind of demand, which is like, when I want 100% ownership of my properties. I want 100% of control of my properties. So I've actually found a highly qualified asset manager to do all the heavy lifting for me in the States. Properties are in, like, I'm looking at properties between like the 100,000 to 350,000, and these will all be like, for those who are more sophisticated, I'm looking at like between like 5 and 7 cap rates on single family homes and landlord friendly.
You already have single family homes?
On single family homes. Yeah.
Okay.
Even in Austin, Texas, I can walk into like a 5.3 cap, right, on a single family home, in a property that I think will outperform, in a city that will likely outperform most cities in the States.
Yeah.
And then I'm also buying in the dip, so I'm probably going to make some pretty good returns. And again, it'll be easier as well. Like one of my challenges here in Canada is like I'm tapped out of credit, right? My last mortgage was a B lender, so it's expensive, and I don't have to have these problems in the States. So everything will be debt service ratio mortgages. So they'll look at the income of the property, not me. So I can, and I'm promised I can have as many mortgages as I want, as long as I have down payments and can find properties that will have at least a debt service ratio of at least 1, so the rents cover all the expenses. So my plan, I just sold one property. I just went firm on Friday at one property here. I have 2 others for sale. Getting another property ready to sell as well for the spring. So my plan is to slowly exit my income properties here and move my capital to the States, where I'll make better cash flow. I can pacify this almost completely.
Okay.
Right. Trying to get my real estate to be as close as Omega stock in terms of passivity, while still maintaining 100% control, 100% ownership.
Okay. Now, what markets are you looking in?
I'm looking at some of the primary things I want, because I'm old school, right? I look at where population is growing. Population grows where jobs are coming. So it's very easy to define the major job stories in the States, because they actually have a lot of them. So I think everyone can appreciate the big story right now is AI, right? Just last week, I don't know if you saw it, man, like OpenAI just came out they just showed their new text to video availability.
No, I didn't see that.
Man, you gotta look, man. There's text prompt. Give me please give me a drone video of California during the gold rush.
Yeah.
And it is exactly that for 1 minute. A drone video going down a river. On both sides of the building, on both sides of the river, there's buildings of that era of the gold rush. Yeah. Same with the people. The people walking around dressed of that, like it looks like a Western movie.
Yeah.
Just from a text prompt. So I think we all know.
Sorry, I saw a video the other day that was showing like AI like a year ago versus AI now, and how much has changed, how much it's advanced that quickly. So yeah, lots changing in the world with that.
Lots changing. Like we're on Riverside right now, which I know is resource hungry, right? AI is way hungrier for resources. So more supercomputers and more microchips need to be made for the purposes of AI. I really see it now. I completely understand the reason. Sam Altman, which is the president CEO of OpenAI, I saw a headline that he's raising $10 billion himself to build more microchips for AI. Now, I'm not smart enough to work in AI or to build an app for AI or anything like that, but I'm smart enough as a real estate investor that I will buy my house, my income properties, near microchip manufacturing plants. Now, there's a lot of them being built next to really good cities to invest, like Phoenix, Arizona, like Dallas, Texas, like Austin, Texas, like Charlotte, North Carolina, like Atlanta, Georgia, right? Like Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, Ohio is getting Intel. Everyone has heard of Intel, right? So this is how I'm trying to ensure the success of my income properties. Buying near a diversified city that everyone's heard of, not going to Timmins, Ontario here. Everyone knows Phoenix, Arizona, and TSMC is building there, the world's largest microchip manufacturing plant in the world. They supply for Apple. So yeah, that's how I'm investing in keeping and then trying to keep it really boring.
So you're investing
to these people, these smart AI people.
Absolutely. Especially the single family home is a nice product for them. Now you're talking about all these different cities. Are you planning on buying kind of variety across the US? Or are you going to focus it in one area?
Or no, I'm going to buy variety. So I'm going through an asset manager who's from the institutional space. The CIO is ex-Starlight Investments. Most Canadians should know Starlight. Starlight is Canada's largest apartment building owner. So Dimitri, who's the CIO, he's a friend of mine. He was the one that built the Starlight US portfolio of 20,000 units in the Sunbelt states of the USA. So of people I know personally, he's done more real estate than anyone I know personally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a $7 billion portfolio that he helped put together. So I defer to him as to what I should buy.
Yeah.
And what they generally buy is 3 to 4 bedroom, detached, 2 full bath, single family homes, detached. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do. And part of the reason is also because property managers, you need to understand, like in the States, everything's way bigger. The property managers, like who's the biggest property manager in Ottawa? Like, how many doors do they manage?
I have no idea.
Here's the fun use of stat of the day. So the largest, you've heard of Core Developments Inc.
Yeah.
I believe the number so for the listeners' benefit, Core Developments Inc. is the largest single family owner REIT in Canada, I believe. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. But they get the most headlines. Now, the biggest single family rental holder in Canada, how many houses do you think they have? You don't have the answer. It's impossible.
I imagine not like single families, not a lot.
Single family. So everyone come up with a number in their head. They have 500 houses under management. 500. Versus Tricon, which is a REIT out of Toronto.
We had almost as many as...
You?
No, as certain investors who had some trouble recently in the news.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, good for them. No, not good for them. Actually, Core Developments, I believe, is picking up their pieces and likely getting a really good deal.
That's really good, actually, especially for the investors. Yeah.
It depends. If you're a prom note holder, you're not happy.
No, I imagine you're not. But if you can get something back, it'll be good.
But versus, so there's 500 houses, Core Developments Inc. Tricon, out of Toronto, a Toronto REIT, owns, I believe, 36,000 single-family homes in the States. Right? And I like to joke with people, like you and I are also investors in single-family homes in the States because CPP has invested $1 billion into it.
There you go.
Yeah. I think I need to dig further now. Like, how much does CPP own in Canada in terms of single-family homes?
Are you a savvy real estate investor looking to maximize your profits? Well, if you're buying properties off the MLS, you're not making as much as you could. The most lucrative way to boost your bottom line is by acquiring investment properties off market. By buying privately off market, you're able to save tens of thousands. Now, the problem is finding off market properties is really hard and takes a lot of time, effort, and money to do. Bliss is your #1 source, delivering exclusive deals that you will not find on the MLS directly to your inbox. Bliss's extensive network and insider connections gives you access to properties that are not publicly listed and at a discount. We've helped hundreds of investors across Ontario and BC source the right properties at the right time for their portfolio. Buying assignable purchase contracts through Bliss at a discount helps facilitate higher returns, lower competition, and deals that align perfectly with your investment goals. From start to finish, Bliss's world-class team of real estate professionals makes the process seamless for all investors. If you're ready to elevate your real estate investment strategy, visit us at offmarketbliss.ca to join our buyers list and start receiving exclusive off-market deals directly to your inbox. The most profitable opportunities await, and they're exclusive to you and our valued buyers list members. For your next project, check out Bliss, the go-to source for off-market deals.
Single-family homes are not investment class asset in Canada for the most part. Like 500 homes, you said, that's not a lot compared to there was a condo developer out of Toronto that made news a couple of years ago that they were going to try to buy up like 500 homes, in the GTA or something like that, and they were getting all this hate,
Might have been.
Sorry,
it may have been them. Core Development's got a whole bunch of hate. I remember that.
Could have been. Yeah, they wanted to buy up 500 of them. It's possible. Yeah, it was a condo developer that was like, no, we're going to buy houses and possibly duplex them as well. I think they were like focusing in Kitchener area and stuff like that. But it's not a common,
not an easy business model. That is.
No, and part of that is absolutely betting on appreciation. right? And so if you can raise money at that institutional cost, like that lower possible cost of capital, that can make a lot of sense, possibly, right? And you're kind of betting on the future at a larger scale, the future of the Canadian real estate market, which, I mean, prices are so high, but we're not building enough. It's really a problem. We're not building enough. So
yes, and I don't see a world where prices go down either. Like I was talking to one of my
not long term.
No, absolutely not long term. Even I was talking to a Toronto friend of mine who's a really smart guy. He's a realtor too, and he's an investor. And I just give him the question, like, how much do you need to put down on a Toronto condo to break even? He ran some numbers in his head. 50 to 55% down payment in cash, no HELOC crap. Has to be debt-free money, 50 to 55%, just to cover your hard costs.
Yeah.
Right? Mortgage, taxes, insurance, condo fees.
Maybe some repairs. Yeah.
No, that doesn't cover repairs. Doesn't cover the pending 10% plus interest property tax increase that's coming. Doesn't cover any vacancy loss or bad debt.
Yeah.
Right? Versus, I'm talking about going to the States to buy properties between 100 to 350 US. Right? And I can cash flow quite nicely, get into 5 to 7 caps right away.
Yeah.
Right? And it's easy. The rights are all in my favor. And long term, I should do just fine based on my strategy of buying near major manufacturers that are coming.
So how are you choosing the houses you're going to buy? Are you looking at them yourselves? Are you finding them and then sending to a realtor like, hey, go take a look at these? Is someone choosing them for you? And you're like, yeah, I approve of this one. Let's buy it. Okay.
Again, I'm using an asset manager who will do all the heavy lifting for me. They will source me deals. So basically, they'll recommend me properties. They'll manage the manager. Because that's also important because, not every investment has risk. I tell my clients here in Ontario, your greatest risk is the tenant. Because stuff happens.
Yeah.
Right? Divorces happen, drug habits seem to happen, job loss happens. All these things happen for reasons why I won't pay you rent. Right? And everyone has a friend or been through devastating financial losses with long-term tenants. I had a tenant deliberately flood my basement in my property, mental health issues, and that cost me a couple $1,000s. And that property didn't cash flow as is enough to come in. That wiped out almost everything. I got lucky with appreciation. I was able to break even that property. But I'm lucky enough that myself and my wife make good enough income that we could carry that property. But a lot of people can't. So, just basically look at what every investor should look at. What is my worst case scenario with this property? I'm sure you go through the exact same exercise every property you deal with. What is my absolute worst case, right?
Yeah.
Here, very reasonable worst case to have a tenant not pay you for 9 months, right? Or worse, trash the property, or worse, drag it out to 2-3 years.
Absolutely.
Right? For most investors, that is not a viable worst case scenario. My worst case scenario in the States and landlord-friendly USA, like a Texas, like an Arizona, like a Columbus, Ohio, like a Charlotte, North Carolina, like Atlanta, Georgia, my worst case is 30, 60 days. The tenant's gone.
Yeah.
I have a new tenant in, paying the rent.
Yes.
They don't want that. My worst case scenario, hire a realtor, sell the house. Right? I can't even do that here in Ontario.
No.
My properties that are tenanted, I can't hire a realtor and just sell the house.
Right? Not easy. And
not easy.
Significantly less than you would get otherwise, right?
I'll quote a really smart guy who came on my show. If a property is tenanted, I expect to sell for $50,000 less. You know who said that?
Yeah. I said that on you.
Yeah. Even if it's $25,000 less, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So my worst case scenario in the States is way less than it is here. So I cannot I think everyone should consider the States for their next investment property. You don't have to sell everything like I'm doing. I'm just really frustrated.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you some questions about it. Financing, you mentioned, as long as it covers, debt coverage ratio, assuming it does, what kind of loan to value would you expect on purchase?
My situation is different again, because I'm planning on going with cash. I have lots of line of credit available to me. Rates are high though. Okay. I would just based on where I am in my career, I want my properties to at least break even. Okay. So my plans are at least 30 to 45% cash.
Okay. So that to make sure the cash flow is there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And also because rates are high and I have no credit in the States. So I'm paying like 8.5. But I'll refi in about 3 years when rates were expected to bottom. And I'll lock in for like 30 years at 4%.
Yeah.
Like, how is that for risk mitigation? My rate is frozen for 30 years, right? Yeah, I think everyone can appreciate some risk mitigation these days while our rates are at historic highs.
And do you find that it's, something like 3 years and you'll have your credit history built in the States? Is that what you expect?
Probably about a year or two.
Okay.
A year or two, I'll have my credit built up in the States. So I'll save about 100 basis points at least. And then again, And again, in 3 years, I'll be able to take some capital back out as well.
Okay. Any complications setting up in the U.S., difficulties with the border, cross-border taxation, getting bank accounts, your social security number?
I want that. So there's an ITIN. So there's a social insurance number for investors.
Mm-hmm.
All this is really easy. All of this is pushing paper.
Yeah.
Right. The accounting fees will be significant. No different than like for an investor who has like 3 properties, pretty typical, 3 properties or more, pretty typical they have a corporation.
Yeah.
Right. So for that investor, if you're doing the same thing in the States, you're likely paying about the same in the accounting fees.
Right.
Right. So again, the challenges of having a multinational investment business is what we're discussing here essentially, is incredibly minor compared to one tenant not paying you.
Yeah. And you're setting up a corporation, not an LLC.
I'll let Cherry decide that. Okay. Because again, my situation is different than most. For most people, probably about 80% of people, limited partnership will be sufficient.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and there are some, for those, obviously go to experts, anyone listening if you're planning on doing this, but there are some fears with LLCs that you can, because it's a flow-through entity, you can end up getting double tax, like tax in the States and again in Canada in different ways. So a corporation is sometimes what's recommended, and there's different types of corporations. So, you want to talk to someone who specializes in this if you're gonna work on. If you're going to do that. So
it's no different than doing anything on this side of the border. You just need a quality team.
Yeah.
And luckily I married my accountant. So for me, I'm not that worried. And I don't think most people need to be that worried about it. Like they should really focus more on how do I make more money? And, I'm not the only one going to the States. There's tons of people going to the States.
Oh yeah. Right? Oh, absolutely. But it is something, I would say it's not something that's unsurmountable and should scare you away from doing it, but it is something I would almost say to worry about, because I do find the accounting burden on small businesses is kind of insane in Canada, and it's only getting worse. And like to the point that you can almost not get any accountants to answer you on stuff. Like it takes forever to get an answer from accountants. They're all so busy. They don't need to work for your business because they're all so busy.
They're all so busy.
And there's always new extra rules. Like the government never simplifies it. And we just
no, they don't.
Yeah.
Like and to your point, for every accountant, their billing per client goes higher, which doesn't. So that's why they can't take on as many clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So
and it is something.
Yeah, it is something to kind of worry about in a way. Like not worrying that don't do it, worrying like okay, make sure I get this right and make sure I do prioritize it. Like I don't want to be losing receipts and not having a good system set up to track expenses for the business. And then I get to tax time and I've just got, I don't know, a shoebox of receipts or something that's, you want to have a system set up to make accounting easier. Because when I started flipping,
oh man, I can't even imagine.
When I first started flipping like on my own and, that kind of work is not my favorite. So it was quite a burden. And now in my business, I have a full-time bookkeeper and a full-time accountant, and we still use outside companies for like all the filings and stuff. And it's a big burden on a small business.
You're special though. Your accounting fee must be enormous.
Oh, and it's a burden. It's a burden on small businesses, and it's like, and
this whole trust reporting thing is like that's terrible. The amount of work that's
necessary. Yeah,
but like the government is making us do trust reporting so they can see what we own. Right? To get transparency into what we own, they're making us do all the work and you have to pay your accountant to do it.
Okay.
Right? We're talking about like $500 to $700 per property, I think we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is something easy to file. It's just people won't know the fines that they automatically impose, even if you didn't owe it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Even if you don't owe anything. So
it sucks.
It is. Yeah, I don't want to get political, but sometimes I find some things annoying. But moving on, we're gonna move.
To your point, though, like I was saying, though, accounting fees will cost you in the States, which is why I tell people you should only really consider going to the States investing if you're going to buy at least 3 properties.
Yeah, it's not worth it for just one to figure it all out, set all of that up.
Yeah, no different than here. It's not really doesn't really make a lot of sense to have a corporation invest in a corporation if you're only going to own one property.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, talk to your own accountant. I'm not a professional. Neither is Luke.
And even if I am, I'm not your professional.
Exactly. Everyone's case is different. Because again, I'm a very unique situation. So like what I do is not appropriate for everyone.
So let's move on to the section of the show where we talk about our best and worst deals, or our favorite and least favorite deals that we've ever done.
Okay.
Do you have any in mind for your best deal?
Best deal. You'll speak to a client property, because I wish I did this myself. So I mentioned that we do a lot of student investment properties.
Mm-hmm.
We found this developer builder in Thorold, Ontario, which is really close to Brock University, and they had trouble selling properties. So we were looking for supply, and so we went to the builder's office, and they had properties. They're like, "Okay, this is great. Can you do this for me?" So I had them change a dining room into a bedroom. I had them finish the basement as well to build me 2 bedrooms, a full bathroom, rough-ins for a kitchen, just rough-ins. I said, yeah, we can do that. I'll just charge you for it. Now, what's special here is that most builders do not want to do any extra work for you unless they charge you through the nose. They definitely do not want to finish their basement, because generally they're short on labor. They just need to pump out houses, right? Because this is Thorold, Ontario, the market's really slow there. Builder was excellent, though. So then I brought them a whole bunch of... I designed with them, with their designer, what I wanted to deliver a turnkey build for you 7-bedroom student rental, and said, this is great. And because we'd been in the market, I knew what the rents would be, and so I brought them a whole bunch of buyers. So we're buying turnkey, done by the builder, beautiful student rentals. And these were beautiful because they're brand new, they were modern, the rooms were bigger than the rest of the market, and my clients owned a bunch of them. We were buying these for like $260, and renting them out for I think around $425 a room. So yeah, we were renting them out for almost $3,000 a month.
Wow. Yeah.
$3,000 a month on a $260 property, roughly.
Yeah.
Right. And then just recently we sold one for about $800,000. Wow.
So not only were they obviously cash flowing very well, because I mean, if you're buying that, you put 25% down, you have a $225,000 mortgage, your payment's quite low.
You had no renovation budget either, because the builder did it.
Probably at the time,
the purchase price,
you're probably about $1,000 a month just in mortgage payment on that, give or take. And
and our experience was 0 vacancies.
And they were freehold, right? Not condominiumized, these things?
Freehold, yes.
Yeah, so there's no condo fees. There's some maintenance, but very deferred, or because it's all brand new. You know, minimal maintenance, if anything, some repairs over. And
because I was working with the builder as well, we were able to do some special features. For example, our basement bedrooms had egress windows, right? That'd be really expensive, even with permits to do.
You don't want to do that afterwards. Like if they're putting the windows in anyways, do it properly at the beginning. It's so much easier to do it right away. To try to do it later.
And also we did on any shared wall, we would do fire rated drywall and rock solid safe and sound. Right. So we just went over the top on safety.
Yeah.
And also again, like we interconnected all the smoke alarms. Again, we went well above and beyond, and so all the parents loved it. Well, and then we actually started getting above market rents as well for all the properties.
Yeah. It's so much easier to do while they're building it than have to tear it off afterwards.
Exactly.
And redo it. That's unnecessary. Yeah.
And then you finance the whole renovation.
Yeah, exactly. Versus closed on this, now we can rent it, you know?
Yeah. And rents have gone up. So like I said, we were renting for about $425 a room back then. Now we're like 650, right? So the rents are now like 4,500. So they've gone up about 50%.
Yeah, and I mean that does make it harder to cash flow now when you're buying them for 800,000 or more in that range. But if you bought them early on, that's insane return. Not only are you cash flowing significant amount of money every month, you're also the value just pumped up, and that's amazing.
Yeah. So because the renovation was financed, you're only into the property for basically down payment and closing costs.
So what
your ROI just soars.
Oh, absolutely. What lessons did you or your clients learn from doing these properties?
There's this whole schools out there about like being making property like investment has to be difficult, as in challenging. Like I know you made a business out of it. You bought some. I see your Instagram. You bought some ugly ass shit, right?
Yeah, I love it.
The lesson out of here is like we bought beautiful property off builders, and these ROIs have outperformed I think almost anything we've ever done. We didn't have to reburr anything. We didn't have to buy an ugly house. We didn't have to do anything difficult, right? But yeah, so the lesson here to me and my clients was like we don't necessarily have to do anything challenging, right?
That's good. That's a good lesson.
I wish I bought these myself. Instead, I bought a different properties that I did like duplexes or whatever. My ROI is not nearly as good.
That's a good lesson to learn though. That like not everything has to be difficult. Just because, sometimes people look at properties and they go, "Oh, this must let's say a rundown property. This must be a good deal because it's in such bad shape."
Yeah.
That doesn't make it a good deal. It could be a good deal and be in good shape, and you don't have to necessarily always be like, "Well, if it wasn't hard, then it wasn't a good deal," and that's not true. So I like that mindset. But I do feel we learn the most lessons from deals that go wrong, or deals that aren't as good. So can you share what was either your worst deal or your least favorite deal?
Early in our career, we didn't know what the heck we were doing. And so this is like 2005. We bought a house that was like 1880s. It had a wood log foundation. It had a dirt floor. And we really didn't know what we were doing. It was I think we bought it. I think we bought this one like 07. You've gone through a lot of the same programs I have, or at least heard the same things. Buy off market. It's always a better deal. So we had an off market lead come to us as legal duplex. There was a couple. One had passed who was the actual investor. So the widow didn't want the property, and we were like, off market, this is gonna be good. So off market, we're gonna make money here. And we told the seller like, oh yeah, it's a recession coming. Like, will you take this? Yes. Damn it. She immediately took it. Like, oh man, I think we screwed up. But yeah, property had so much deferred maintenance because it was so old, right? Like every time, like whoever did the driveway, it was graded that so if there was melt or rain, it would go, the water would funnel towards the basement bedroom, the basement window. Mm-hmm. Like the water was brown because like it was ancient piping, right? Oh, yeah. All the ancient plumbing, like it's galvanized steel. Yeah, the water comes out of the tap, it's brown,
rusted. Yeah,
like these are properties you walk away, but we're investors, we're sophisticated. It's a private deal. It's got to be good. It's a duplex. It's got to be good. Legal duplex. So yeah, thank God appreciation saved me. We made money on that one just a little bit, but never will I buy old property again.
How long did you own it, and what'd you do with it?
I exited as part of my divorce from my ex. And the lesson from that one was I'll never own as older property. Hence, my portfolio is mainly properties from like the 1950s. And then even then, like one of the properties I've listed for sale right now, that one's a 1920s property because it's close to the university, McMaster. So that's why I bought it. It has great geography. It'll attract a lot of tenants. Mm-hmm. But the damn sink in the second floor leaked right as I was about to list it. Right. And it's just another, is a lead fitting, whatever, no big deal. Yeah. Again, point is, I'm never going to, from just where I am in my career, I never want to own another old property again. So I'm looking at less old properties. Again, I'm trying to de-risk my portfolio. My kids are 8 and 10 years old, so I want to spend more time with them. And yeah, again, I want my portfolio to have way less grief than it gives me, and just simplify, keep it simple, go for cash flow, single family homes in the States.
So the lesson from that deal was don't deal with properties that are that old to hold as rentals. Is that kind of the idea?
deferred maintenance, just like the gentleman, the folks who are having all this financial difficulty. Like one of the partners in that business, they have really old properties in Hamilton too, like 1920s and earlier.
Okay.
Like, and that was a novice investor. I'm sure he regrets buying such old buildings. So again, just at my stage of career, there's a lot of investors who are way smarter than me too, who will say the same thing. To avoid that era of property, avoid all that capital expenditure. Because a lot of that capital expenditure will not provide you a return on investment.
Agreed.
Invest, like just like Windows, for example. Replacing Windows generally doesn't have ROI to it, right? Neither does replacing galvanized steel plumbing, which is atrociously expensive. Neither with knob and tube wiring. That's a big job. Doesn't provide a return.
It's easy to do once everything's open. So
yes,
I actually I've learned similar lessons and I have a similar philosophy. My rental portfolio, essentially, I only want to own things built after 1950, newer than 1950, generally. And where I would have no problem bending that rule is where I have been able to completely gut the property, essentially to the studs everywhere. I know it is all new plumbing, all new drains, all new electrical, new insulation. If it's essentially an old frame with everything new inside, I can work with that. But because I know I'm not going to have issues. But otherwise, I don't like very old homes to keep as rentals because it's just constant issues to deal with.
Okay. But you have to get it cheap enough, and you have to have the team that can deal with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And not everyone can see those. They have those.
No, and often it isn't worth it. Right? You really have to get it cheap enough. And I do feel, obviously, run a flipping and wholesale business. To me, there's a price for every property. It's occasional that price would be negative, where they'd have to pay me to take it because there's so much deferred maintenance and the value's so low. But
it's a tough negotiation.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying there's a price where they'll accept, but to me, every property out there, there's a price that I would buy it at. It might be a negative price, but there's a price I'd buy it at. And if it's an older property that needs a lot of work and I'm going to flip it, okay, well, I'm just going to kind of take into account worst case scenario for all these things that I can't see and budget for all of that, and budget a little extra for the uncertainty, and budget a little extra for the extra time for the reno and extra carrying, and then it can still be worth it. But otherwise, it isn't. It's not worth that. I completely agree with you.
And this is why I love having conversations with some people like yourself, having people like yourself on my show, is to show like a buffet of investors, right? Like when I had you on my show, I wanted to highlight Luke is smart. He's also working really hard and risking quite a bit. Right? Versus lazy me. I'm on the other side of the spectrum. And this is how I invest. This is how I think
because you're
my hardest. Right. I'm a lot older than you too. I think I'm like, what am I? I'm almost 10 years older than you. But again, my point is everyone needs to understand themselves. Take a true account of who you are. Right? Right. Are you smart like Luke? Right? Then you can go ahead, go after what he's going after. If you're lazy like me, you can't be Luke. Right? You will end up in financial devastation.
I think it's the opposite. I think you're the smart one taking the easy way out, but
nah.
I like the problems. I like it. Keeps me up.
I've had enough of them.
But yeah, we're going to go on to our final questions of the day.
Sure, shoot.
The first one, Erwin, is what has changed about your approach to real estate investing with your experience?
I think I talked about the big pivot to the States. I would not make this pivot to the States if financing wasn't so easy and if it did not have a highly qualified asset manager to do all the hard work for me.
Yeah.
Right? Because you and I have both seen people devastated with teams that failed them. Right? I was just talking to an investor with properties in New Brunswick. The property managers stole 2 months of rent from them. Right? A lot of investors can't survive that. Right, which is why I will only invest in an institutional grade property manager. If I have an institutional grade property manager, let me qualify that. That means they have like 1,000 houses under management in the same place I am. Right, so they have lawyers, accountants, handy people, plumbers, carpenters, whatever. They have them all on staff.
Yeah, right.
These are people that will not screw me. Right, versus small PMs. We've all heard issues like I remember this one property manager in Hamilton. He had his car broken into, and all the rent checks were stolen. Right, a lot of investors can't survive that.
Yeah,
right. A lot of property managers can't survive that.
Yeah,
I can't have this as part of my business anymore. So that's why I've chosen the way I'm going.
Absolutely. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back in time, what's one piece of advice you'd have for younger you?
Younger you, I would have started in the States sooner.
Okay.
Because I thought that investing in the States wouldn't make sense unless I could get easy mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
But I could just use my HELOC. And God started that way and build credit and just kept going.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. And lastly, what is the most overlooked or the most overhyped investing strategy right now?
High leverage. I think I'm actually shocked how many people are high leveraged.
So leveraging too much was overhyped or is overhyped right now?
Both. Like there's literally courses out there. I was talking to one investor who's doing 2 duplex conversions in small town Eastern Ontario. And he told me, I don't know if it's true, but he told me he was taught to use his personal line of credit to finance the renovation. These are duplex conversions, right? So they're going to be 6-figure renovations with your personal line of credit. That's to finance it. And like anyone and everyone should know, it's difficult to get a property to cash flow with a 20% down payment and a regular Schedule A bank for the rest of the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to make this work with using your personal line of credit to finance stuff?
Yeah. I mean, if anything, your personal line of credit can be an additional safety net, a buffer.
It should be your emergency.
Yes. It shouldn't be your primary source.
Yeah.
I agree. It can be scary to do that. So, yeah.
But generally, I think people are, just because so many people want away from long-term tenants in Ontario, they're venturing into other areas that they understand are difficult. Development's difficult, right? High leverage, whatever burrs are difficult. Your margin for error is so tiny, right? You better keep your day job so you have cash flow coming in to support whatever challenges you run into.
Yeah, absolutely.
I should throw that in too. Leave your day job, become a full-time investor in this market.
Yeah. Yeah, not necessarily the best time. I mean, depends on their situation, what they're up to right now. But if you're just trying to do that from scratch, it's not a great market to be jumping into with both feet. If you don't already have like a proven track record that's working in this market, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not an easy market to do that in. So that's few and far between for the people.
You and I have seen lots of wholesalers not make it this far.
Yeah. Like
we can name way more wholesalers who haven't made it or even around anymore.
Yeah.
Versus ones who still are around.
Oh yeah, there was a boom. There was a boom of wholesalers for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have, we're not hearing much about them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd just like to say the last thing is like, people understand, like people lose money. People can absolutely lose money. So people need to understand their worst case scenario. There's people going bankrupt right now, right? And taking down their investor money with them. Yeah. And a lot of that money was friends and family.
I don't understand. Every time I raise money, I've done a lot with my own money, but occasionally I raise money or have investors and stuff. I always, to me, I treat their money better than mine. Like it's not something you play with. People put their trust in you. That's not something you betray. So yeah, I don't know how people borrow that money and then act willy-nilly with it and do whatever they want and just, I don't know. They don't seem to hold the duty that they should have with the trust that they're given.
Mm-hmm. So then the other side of that is I'll say, invest your own money. Get educated, invest your own money. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm maintaining 100% control of my capital and my investments. For the most part. I have some RSP stuff that are more passive with partners and stuff, but generally the vast majority of my wealth, I own and control it. Along with my wife.
Yeah.
And
all right, awesome. Erwin, thank you for coming on. If people want to find out more about you, your podcast, get in touch with you to, discuss USA and investing in the States, or, the realtor side, how can they find you? How can they reach out to you?
My name is very incredibly unique. It's Erwin Szeto, ERWIN folks can Google me. You'll find me on social media. I do respond to my DMs. My podcast, I have smart people like yourself on, called Truth About Real Estate Investing. Been going since 2016. Well over 300 episodes, all hour length. And hopefully it's like conversations like this. Again, I love talking to a wide spectrum of investors. I do screen, of course. So yeah. So I'm generally looking for people who have repeatable business models that people can learn from. And yeah, that's what I do since 2016.
Okay. Well, I'm sure they can find you online. Like you said, you're all over. And yeah, I like to listen to your podcast as well whenever I have a chance. So
appreciate it.
listen to that.
Will you listen to yours?
Yeah, I will, I think. Yeah.
You will? I can't listen to myself.
It's hard. You know what it is then some people DM me and ask me questions about it, and I won't remember what I even said. So,
All right.
yeah, I'll probably try to listen to it. It's weird listening to yourself. I don't like it. Yeah.
I post the transcripts. You can just reread it. I think that's easier than listening.
That I can't hear my own weird voice because your voice always sounds so strange. Hearing it back versus how it sounds in your own head. Yeah.
Same. Yeah, I'd rather read it at least. Or stick it through ChatGPT. That's actually what I would do. I'd stick the transcript through ChatGPT. Like, what did I say?
Smart. All right, Erwin. Thanks so much. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Luke.